This is the Prestige Initiative, and these are the points. I'm Chris Kent, and I'm joining Chris Bean. Hello, Mr. Bean.
Hello, sir.
Let's talk about your conversation with Nita Armstrong, the HR effect. Really interesting to hear her approach to human resources, human relations, that kind of management type stuff. Uh, any first impressions or thoughts?
Yeah, I thought that it was really refreshing to her approach as far as keeping the human aspect at the core of what she's doing. It was very clear that she sees these people, not as cogs in the machine, just doing their mindless drone work. And so I thought that was really clear as we were going through. Also, it's very clear that she also knows a lot of information and is well versed on all of her roles and responsibilities for her job. So that's very refreshing to know that we have people like that on the ground doing that type of work.
Yes, sir. Yeah, at the forefront, taking an ethical approach to HR and keeping compassion in mind when you're dealing with other people. But I also appreciate on top of that too that she is staying on top of technological trends and finding ways to leverage AI to her advantage, and using AI, whether it be to communicate to different demographics and connect with the right people, or just using it to find out a better way to do something or say something, and using that again as a tool to take an ethical approach or keep the compassion at the core of what she's doing with her project and with her work. And so, I think again, having that compassion and empathy at the forefront, but then using the tools provided to you. And of course, we're moving more toward technology and AI and things like that, and how those two things can work together when she's in the right mindset or when she's at the forefront of what's happening there was refreshing and exciting to learn about.
Yeah, of course, we talked pretty early on about AI, and I anticipated her to be like, no, AI is don't do that. But she uses AI all the time, which I think is helpful because she's using it as a tool in order to serve her and help her to reach and connect with her people in a better way than what she could have otherwise, because she's using that AI as a tool to help that communication. And it's AI is I think very helpful in that regard, that it can allow us to offload some of the mental tasks that we can offload, and then that frees us up to do something else, to make those connections, to be a little bit better as we show up to things, because we can offload those things. But also, I think that using AI in the way that she is to help to connect with other people that she's helping to lead and to manage, to work with, it, that's not something that people are doing nowadays, right? You have the AI and they're just, either they don't use it at all or they're not using it very well, but she's using it to help to reach her team in other ways, to communicate the things that she needs to communicate with people that maybe she doesn't speak the same language, the work lingo. So she can use that AI to help to facilitate that communication so that everybody on the team can understand where she's coming from in a much easier light.
Yes, sir. Yeah, part of that is another thing that she excels at is understanding that every pathway is different. Every person is going to be different. So, embracing the idea that you should be true to yourself, because people can tell when you're being fake. But not only that, because when you embrace your authenticity and these people with differences, it really puts you in the right spot for where you need to be. And that's again where Nita comes in, is she can take you from where you are and what you're doing and find the place that's right for you. But she can't do that if you're being fake. And so, using these tools to link these people to what genuinely motivates them, who they genuinely are, their authentic selves, and find something that they can excel at and be good at and enjoy, is all part of the whole formula of what Nita's doing. And again, it has that technological component. There's still empathy and compassion involved, and then you're also accounting for the differences in people, and really trying to tap into people at their core and their authentic selves.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that comes up often nowadays, is that authentic self, because we're all trying to be somebody else, and all trying to just do what Steve Jobs did, but you can't do what he did because he's already done it. And so then if you try to do what he did, you're just a copycat. And I think that and as we talked about, it's very easy to see when those people are not being authentic, when they're just faking it. And really, we don't want somebody else to be a carbon copy that somebody else has already done, because they've already done that. They forged their own way. They were authentic and true to themselves. And if you can do that in your own way, I think that is much better than trying to fill somebody else's shoes. And again, it's so easy to tell when people are faking those type of things. So be authentic and true to who you are, and then you can be placed in the right position for that job, because that is who you are. You're not trying to be somebody else, because if you try to be somebody else and you get into that job, you're going to dislike your job, because that's not you. That's not what you're interested in. Be true to yourself, and then find a job or position that allows you to do that as you move forward.
And if you're having trouble being true to yourself, being your authentic self, do something else that Nita supports or Nita encourages, which is journaling. Helps you to zoom out and gain perspective over who you are, what's important to you, where you want to be, your goals, your ambitions, your desires, your motivators, things like that. And part of that journaling, as Nita encouraged, is also to practice gratitude. Practice gratitude for not only your opportunities in life, but also your team at work, or the things that are present that you enjoy, or the things that you're thankful for, the gratitude piece. And so, we've talked about journaling extensively and different ways to journal and reasons for journaling. But again, great to hear those tips from her to help us connect with our authentic selves and be true to ourselves in these situations is the tool of journaling.
Yeah, you don't need me here to hear me say this again, but journaling is so helpful, so important. Absolutely agree. Yes.
Yep. Moving on, we talked a little bit about goals, the importance of limiting your goals in a team setting and helping the team understand what the goals are. So, if you have a team of 20 people and you write down a list of 100 goals, well, I don't know exactly if it takes a lot of people to get a certain goal done, or you're working on a big project, maybe those 100 goals can't get finished. And so maybe another way of looking at it is prioritizing your goals. So maybe you have 100 goals, sure, but let's prioritize the top 5 for this week, and then make your way down the list if you can, encountering different changes and responsibilities or disruptions as they kind of show up. But I think that's important too, to think that, if you as one person can handle one goal, well, maybe because you have 20 people doesn't necessarily mean that you should have 20 goals, because some of those goals that you might set as a team are going to take a little bit longer or require more resources or effort than the one goal each person can make. And so when you're in that team, not to confine yourself, but be realistic, limit those goals, think about what you actually can achieve as a team and what you're going to get done, and then work on executing those plans.
Yeah, I think that a key to this is being able to communicate those goals to your team, right? Because if you are in charge of that means you might be in charge of multiple departments. And as you're talking to them, you have to speak the lingo so that everybody can understand. That is a tough thing. But I think that the way that she navigates this is she does very well, because she can allow all the team members to understand what their role is as they move forward. So they know that they're attributing towards X, and they want to see X progress. I keep saying X. They want to see A progress in B time. And so with all of those variables, they know what their role is, and they want to know how far they need to achieve by a certain time point. I think that is key. And then again, to communicate that to everybody on the team so they can actually understand what they are attributing towards the success of the business is wildly important.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was the next point that Nita talked about, was communication. Communication, not only communication, but communication and comprehension of that communication, understanding why, the importance of understanding why. And again, the comprehension of that, because you can think that you told your team exactly what you want and how you want it done and when you want it done by. And in your brain, it makes 100%, it makes total sense. But the people you're communicating to only understand it at a 25% or a 50% even. That's not going to cut it. So when you're working on communication, finding out how to communicate effectively, making sure the team understands what you're wanting, why you're wanting it, is important aspect of that communication. And maybe it goes back to the beginning of our conversation. Maybe you implement AI to find out the best way to roll out that strategy or communicate that, or you talk to a coach or a mentor and say, hey, how should I best convey this information? Whatever it is, use your tools, but don't think that just because you said something and you understand what you mean, that everyone else is going to understand as well. You need to make sure your team and your coworkers comprehend what you're asking or what is asked of them.
And I think part of this is setting up a culture where your team members can ask questions. So if they don't understand something, they can ask you, hey, listen, I don't quite understand what you want me to do here. But if you have an atmosphere where that doesn't happen or that can't happen or shouldn't happen, then that team member is not going to raise their hand and say, hey, I need better clarification. But if you set up a structure, set up an atmosphere where that's allowed or even encouraged to happen, then as you are explaining whatever it is to your team members and they don't understand something, they ask. And when they ask, you can better clarify what it is because you know then that they don't understand. So you just alter your approach, give them a different phrasing or different way to understand whatever it is. But if you don't set that up ahead of time, if you don't have that culture there, then they're not going to know to ask questions, or they're going to feel ashamed of not understanding whatever it is. Well, really, that's not on them. That's on you as the leader, as the person who is delivering that information. So I think that the key point of this is to set up a culture where the team can ask questions to seek further clarification and not just say, does anybody have any questions? No. Okay, bye. And then they run away. That's not the same thing.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Some of this goes back to, as we mentioned already, journaling and kind of knowing yourself, understanding where emotions sit with people and with decisions. Being self-aware contributes to this high degree of emotional self-awareness. Just being able to understand where your emotions sit, where the other person's emotions sit, and how those things play into your goals and your ambitions and your plans and this different relationships that you're gonna cultivate or navigate through in a business setting. And talking about your day-to-day life and the idea that you have full control of your habits. So if you're doing something that you're not happy with, you can control that. You can make a change in that. And Nita referenced James Clear's Atomic Habits, which we've referenced a couple of times with different people, and a great book to kind of open your mind up to habits and what they are and kind of what drives those. But again, knowing yourself and being tapped into emotion is going to be pivotal in this business setting, even though maybe it doesn't seem like it is. But specifically when we're talking about humans and human resources, human relations, bringing that human element back into HR, being self-aware and being not just aware of yourself, but other people as well, and what they feel and what they think is going to be huge, and being an effective communicator, an effective team member in this realm.
And I think the key to this, and we've talked about it with Nita when she was here, is that emotional intelligence. You have to at least have a baseline understanding of what emotional intelligence is, and then what you can do to become better in that regard, to have that emotional intelligence, and then start to raise your level of emotional intelligence is so important, because without that, the communication is lost, right? You don't get that human part from them or from you as you're communicating. So if you can understand and have good emotional intelligence as you are communicating with your team will be able to understand you much more efficiently.
Yes, sir. Yeah. We also touched the topic of actually understanding what your job is. And so, if you can, she put it in the way of, you should be able to explain your job to a 3-year-old. Explain your job to a 3-year-old in the way they can understand what you do. And so just being sure that you have the right tools for that job as well. So knowing what your job is, knowing that you can do your job with the tools available to you, or you're able to go to a mentor or a coach or a coworker and say, hey, I can't decide what to do here. I'm not sure. Can you help me? That's another tool in that toolbox that can help you get your job done. And, we've talked about it between the two of us with many guests. We've written articles about it, done speeches about it. But again, Nita brought up the idea that making mistakes is acceptable. You will recover from those mistakes and you can learn from those mistakes. It's not a shameful thing. It's not something to avoid. I mean, we want to avoid making mistakes if we can, but it's going to help you, or it can help you, as long as you utilize that as another tool in that toolbox. And those ideas in hand, it's going to help us grow exponentially as a person and as an asset to any company or team, if we can remember all those things as we navigate through day-to-day challenges. Make sure you follow us on social media. You can find the podcast at Prestigious Pod.
You can find me, Chris Bean, at Chris Bean Official.
You can find me, Mr. Kent, at Mr. Chris R. Kent.
And if you like our content and would like to subscribe to our email, you can do that via our social media or on the website.
Make sure you also join our Discord for exclusive content and personal interactions.
If you would like to be coached on how to live a more prestigious life by me, Chris Bean, you can do that by reaching out on one of my social medias or by emailing the podcast at prestigiousinitiative@gmail.com.
Those are the points. Make sure you come back next week for even more points and another great conversation. Until next time, I'm Chris Kent.
And I'm Chris Bean.